Halo, halo. Oke. يمك.
Så kan du forklare, hvad vi skal i dag? Det kan jeg i hvert fald godt.
Oke.
Greetings, Poke fans! Michael here, and Pokemon's division of the rock and ground type is unusual. The four classical elements are air, water, fire, and earth, with no distinction between stones and dirt. Therefore, most media with elemental categorization just has earth. Monster battling franchises like Yu-Gi-Oh!, Digimon, and Bakugan only have Earth as an attribute or element. Earthbenders in the Avatar world can bend dirt and stone all the same. So what would it look like if Pokemon was like these other franchises? What if there was no rock type or ground type, only an Earth type? In the first part of this video, I'm going to go over what the Earth type's mechanics would be in the mainline Pokemon games. So, its type chart, how it impacts certain Pokemon, and so forth. I'll be deciding this mainly from a lore standpoint, but trying to make it a balanced type. Then after that, I'll sit down with Wolfie VGC, World Champion Pokemon Battler, to get his expert opinions on how the Earth type would fare competitively, and whether it would break the game. But now to design the Earth type. Step number 1 is figuring out its type chart, and let's start with defensive weaknesses. We can decide these by looking at what types the rock and ground types are weak to. Rock is currently weak to fighting, grass, ground, steel, and water. Meanwhile, ground is weak to grass, ice, and water. The easiest thing to do is make the earth type weak to grass and water. We're combining rock and ground, so like any weaknesses they share are of course going to carry over. But the weaknesses make sense logically too. Plant roots dig into the earth and suck up nutrients, plus can crack apart stone. If you've ever seen a sidewalk lifted by a tree root, you're seeing plants win over earth. On tangent here, should have been the plant type. There's a lot more plants than just grass. As for water, it erodes rocks and dirt alike. Ever heard of the Grand Canyon? The massive deep cut through the earth? Yeah, water did that. The next easy type matchup decision is removing rock's weakness to ground. I think that was added originally because, I don't know, earthquakes can, break rocks, but they can also cause rock slides. Rock slide is a Pokemon attack? It's kind of weird and strange. Definitely an easier one to dismiss than, water putting out fire. But regardless of that, we're combining rock and ground. You can't have ground super effective against rock because they don't exist anymore. The only way to preserve it would be to make Earth weak to itself, and I just don't think that makes sense. The only two types that are super effective against themselves are Dragon and Ghost. But dragons and ghosts are mythical beings, so they're super effective against themselves because the idea is that the only thing powerful enough to stop them is themselves. Earth is not like that. It's dirt and rocks. Other stuff can break them. But then after that, the decisions get trickier, especially in regards to types that rock is good against but ground is weak to, or vice versa. First up, rock is weak to fighting, but ground is not. I personally don't think the earth type should be weak to fighting. Whenever you see a martial artist breaking what looks like stone, it's almost always concrete or bricks, which are earth, but man-made earth. If you go into the wilderness and try to punch a boulder, you're gonna break your hand. Nor will anything happen if you punch dirt. So, like, I don't think Earth should resist fighting, but it doesn't make sense for it to be weak to it. Okay, so the fighting matchup wasn't that hard, but then we get to ice and steel, which interact with rock and ground very differently. First, let's talk about ice. Rock is super effective against it, while ground is weak to it, and both make sense. If you slam a rock into an equally sized hunk of ice, the ice breaks. But then if the ground is frozen in winter, you can't dig into it, and digging is a big aspect of the ground type. Then we have steel. Another quick tangent here. Like grass should have a different name. Call it metal. There are so many more metals than steel. You have the cool copper and gold Pokemon. That would make sense if it was the metal type. Oh, and quick side note here, I'm doing my biggest merch drop ever this holiday season at mnjtvmerch.com, featuring the Jungle Form Mighty Plush and the shiny Base Form Mighty Plush. Look at those golden goggles. There's also Mighty Enamel Pins, a Switch case, and a t-shirt. They'll arrive before Christmas if you buy them soon enough, but we're selling them till they sell out. mnjtvmerch.com. Anyways, rock is weak to steel, since in a battle of durability, metal wins. Pickaxes being a prime example. Ground, meanwhile, is strong against steel, likely explained by dirt dulling knives or just burying the metal, I guess? So of these two types, ice and steel, which one, or both, or neither, should Earth be weak to? I think from a logic lore standpoint, you could justify any combination. So instead I'm gonna go for what I think, emphasis on think, makes the type the most balanced. For ice, I think Earth should be weak to it. Ice only has one resistance, itself, so it's designed as a glass cannon type. Losing one of its offensive options would make it an even worse type than it already is, and not being weak to rock anymore gives ice a buff that I think it could use. But even ignoring balance, I still think this is the best ice-earth interaction from a logic standpoint too. I already discussed why it makes sense for ice to beat the dirt part of Earth, but I also think it makes a lot of sense for it to beat the rock part too, even though it doesn't in current Pokemon. That's because water beats rock, and ice is water. Yes, rocks are harder than ice, but ice can still do a lot of damage to stone because water expands when it freezes. If water gets into the cracks of rock, then freezes, it can break apart massive rock formations. Have you ever heard of New Hampshire's Old Man of the Mountain? It was a famous cliff-face landmark that looked like a man, so iconic that it appears all over New Hampshire highway signs, quarters, and more. However, freezing and thawing opened fissures in the old man's forehead, and by the 1920s they had to hold it in place with man-made methods. Eventually, though, it could be preserved no longer, and it collapsed in 2003. Freezing and thawing. Ice literally destroyed a massive cliff. Ice beats Earth. As for steel, I decided Earth will have no interaction with it. From a logical standpoint, I feel like you could justify either one of them beating the other. Steel could beat Earth because of pickaxes and shovels, but Earth could beat steel because of how it deteriorates metal equipment. Plus, while metal is harder than most random rocks, diamond is the hardest material of them all. And diamonds don't count as metal. They count as Earth. Diamond Storm is a rock-type attack. Also, I should probably mention, yes, technically metal is Earth. You know, Earthbenders, certain ones can metal bend and stuff like that. But, like, the properties are different enough that it makes sense for them to stay separate in Pokemon. Whereas Rock and Ground, they just have a lot more in common anyways. Now, I could make Earth and Steel super effective against each other, but there's not really precedent for that. The only time two different types have been super effective against each other were Bug and Poison, and that was only the case in Gen 1. I don't feel comfortable creating a similar situation because, yeah, it's existed before for one generation, and then they removed it immediately. Now, I could make them resist each other. Today, Bug and Fighting are the only two types that resist each other, so I could add Steel and Earth to that list. However, that would mean Steel loses a weakness to Ground, but maintains the same amount of resistances since it currently resists Rock. Steel is already pretty much the best type in the game, I want to minimize the amount of buffs I give it with this Earth type change. Therefore, the compromise is that Steel and Earth have no interaction at all. That logically covers the fact that it could go either way, and I think it's a more balanced way of approaching the Steel type, because it does lose a weakness, but it also loses a resistance. This does definitely make the Steel type a bit better still. Its resistances far outnumber its weaknesses, and thus losing one of each has a bigger percentage impact on the weaknesses. But I think a creative way around this would be by creating an Earth-type move that functions like Freeze Dry. In case you didn't know, Freeze Dry is an Ice-type move that is also super effective against Water-type Pokemon, which is useful since normally water resists ice. So there could be an Earth-type move that multiple Pokemon learn, not a signature move, that is also super effective against the Steel type. We could call it Diamond Blade or Diamond Cutter or something like that, because as we discussed, Diamond is harder than Metal, and Diamond is Earth. Quick little tangent here. I actually came up with a move called Weed Whacker as a kid, which was a Steel-type move that was also super effective against grass. And that was before Freeze Dry existed, so I feel like I might deserve some kind of royalties. There aren't any types that I think Earth should be weak to that Rock and Ground are not already weak to, so that means Earth is defensively weak to grass, water, and ice. The same as Ground. Ha-ha! It is I, Gruntip Boy! Hey man, ooh, is that an Air Up? The sponsor of today's video, bottle I see there? It is! After you introduced me to it, I got one in my favorite color. Well, technically black is the absence of color. Don't do that. No one likes people who do that. Sorry. But it seems like you're liking it. Oh, 100%! Being able to flavor water just by making it smell good is amazing! And it's gotten me to drink so much more water. I don't feel so darn dehydrated all the time, so I just feel better across the board. And it's just so easy. Same here, and fully agreed on it being easy. Pick a flavor pod, slide it over the mouthpiece, lift it up, and suddenly you have flavored water that's just regular water. It's crazy. Tons of flavors to choose from, too. Peach tea is my personal favorite. I'm more of a strawberry lemongrass man myself. You know, because I have taste. Don't love how condescending you're being today. Sorry, just holiday gift-giving stress. Giovanni is so hard to buy for. Well, duh, dude. Just get him an Air Up bottle. I'm doing that for my family, and him being able to drink flavored water with no guilt might make him lighten up a bit. Plus, Air Up is doing their biggest sale ever right now. Gift Air Up this holiday season by clicking the link in the description below. Plus, it does make sense. Tie it with Dragon and Ghost for being resisted by the fewest type. It's down to only... none of them 4 times. It loses its usefulness against flying types, but I think that's a trade it's very willing to make. Speaking of Tyranitar, I should mention that Sandstorm affects the Earth type the same as the Rock type. It cannot hurt them, and it gives them a 50% special defense boost. That's a change that former ground types, especially sand summoning ones like Hippowdon and Sandaconda, definitely appreciate. Additionally, water-rock type Pokemon like Dreadnought and Kabutops are now a lot better. Water Ground has been one of the best types in the game for a long time, since it only has one weakness, a 4 times weakness to grass. Water Rock Pokemon were always worse, since they had that same 4 times grass weakness, plus 3 others. But now all of them are Water Earth, which is defensively like Water Ground, and thus quite good. Overall, I think Rock-type Pokemon would appreciate the change to Earth, but there are some that I think maybe don't like it as much, especially if their secondary typing is weak to flying. Cradilly, Terrakion, Cleavor, and others gain new weaknesses to flying since Earth does not resist. Worth it is, well, it depends on the Pokemon. Other Pokemon are kind of a mixed bag. Rock-flying type Pokemon, such as Archeops or Aerodactyl, turn their electric weakness into an immunity, lose their weakness to steel, and gain a resistance to fighting. However, in exchange, they gain a 4 times weakness to ice. Is that a worthy trade? Maybe. As for the effects beyond this, Wolfie's gonna have to help me, but there are a couple more things I have to cover first. One of them being gym leaders. As you might imagine, all Rock and Ground leaders become Earth leaders. However, Brock and Giovanni are the only Rock-Ground pair of gym leaders in the same region. There is a Gym Leader Elite Four overlap, Rourke and Bertha and Sinnoh, But I don't really mind that since we've had these overlaps before. For example, Chuck and Bruno, then Koga and Agatha. Yes, I know Agatha's technically a ghost type specialist, but her Kanto team is 60% ghost type and 100% poison type. So what do we do about Brock and Giovanni? We cannot have two gym leaders of the same type in the same region. Well, I think a pretty easy fix is make Giovanni a normal type leader. In all of his appearances, he uses either Kangaskhan Khan or Persian in the first two battles, but then ditches them for the gym battle. He could simply just use those in the gym battle, and then fill out the rest of his team with some other powerful Kanto normal types that players don't really see any other trainers use. Specifically, Snorlax, Tauros, and Porygon would be perfect, especially Porygon. You don't really see it anywhere outside of the game corner, and
Det er da bare skønt at være tilbage på jorden igen, ja. Jamen et halvt år, det er lang tid, men ved I hvad, nu skal jeg ind og tilbringe en masse tid sammen med min familie, så I må have mig undskyld. Hej. Skat, jeg er hjemme.
Nå, der er du. Hej, hej. Emily er på lejerskole. Frederik har en lejeaftaler. Jakob sover hos min mor.
Nå, så ser jeg bare dem i morgen, så det. Wow, så kunne vi to måske lige...
Gider du lyn? Der er lige et par ting. For mens du har passet din fine rumstation, har jeg smurt rundt regnet 300 madpakker, støvsuget 150 gange, besøgt din mor 11 gange, har 5 skolehjemsamtaler og har fået lagt nyt tag med solceller.
Nej, har vi fået nyt tag, altså hvor du kan, skat.
Så kunne vi to blive enige om, at nu er det din tur?
Hvad er det?
En to-do-liste.
Tagrender, nye fodlister, buskrydning, male sommerhus.
Ja, verden går jo ligesom videre hernede, mens andre ligger deroppe i vægtløs tilstand, og kan man sige, ikke løfter en finger.
Hvorfor tager du jakke på?
Weekendtur med Charlotte og Susanne. Jeg har ikke været uden for døren i det halve år, du har svævet rundt.
Svævet rundt, det er mit arbejde.
Ja tak, som du valgte i stedet for det glimrende 9-16 kontorjob, du havde ved Luftfartsstyrelsen.
Altså helt ærligt, hele Danmark er stolt af mig. Jeg har fået medaljer.
Ja, men det bliver opvask og nøgtømt af. Husk, at Emily skal hentes i morgen. Støvsugeren skal have nye poser, og du skal købe det med ind til sommerhuset. Jeg tager Teslaen.
Hvad?
Og du kan få rejsekortet.
Rejsekort?
Ja, du er jo vant til offentlig transport og lang rejsetid.
Hvad? Hun har en Tesla.
Ja, hej, det er Andreas Mogensen her. Den der ekspedition til Mars, som jeg sagde nej til. Er der stadig plads på den?
Shit, man.
Here is every Champions League campaign by Messi and Ronaldo, and who really performed better each time around. Let's roll on. Number 1, 2004-2005. Right, so since this is 04, I don't think it's a surprise on who will get the point here. So instead, here are a couple of random ass facts to fill the entry. Number 1, Messi only played one UCL game that season, making his debut in a 2-0 loss away at Shakhtar Donetsk, where he was marked out of the game by a bloke called Lewandowski. Guess that explains the daylight robbery 17 years later, haha! And 2, CR7 got 2 assists in the first group game against Lyon, something which Messi couldn't do in the UCL until Pep arrived. Fraud. Point, Ronaldo. Number 2, 2005-2006. Right, so this was the season Messi won the Champions League despite only playing 2 full games and not even featuring once after the second round. Great. Especially compared to what this bloke was up to, because Jesus Christ. Bro, this Ronaldo UCL season is so overrated, it's unreal. And in case you're wondering, how can it be overrated if I've never heard anyone speak about it? Exactly! No one ever talks about how shit it was. So this helmet started every single game as United crashed out of the group stages. Only time in Ronaldo's career that's ever happened, by the way. And it wasn't just that, man. I'm sorry, but this guy has to take a lot of responsibility for how much of a flipping Thornton he was being in the last game against Benfica, where United desperately needed a result. So what happened in the game? Well, after being absorbed by the boos from the Benfica fans, because, you know, he used to be a sporting player, Ronaldo basically tried to shut the noise up by taking on everyone and win the game himself. themselves. Result, United lost the game 2-1, finishing bottom of their group. And just like that, an iffy UCL win looks more like Maradona 86. Point, Messi. Number 3, 2006-2007. Right, so if you ignore the single game in his debut season, this may have been Messi's worst UCL campaign. I mean, don't get me wrong, it still wasn't terrible, but something just didn't click. The Ronaldinho-Messi pairing isn't what you think it was, people. On the other hand, the 2006-2007 UCL campaign was Cristiano's first world-class one. He terrorized Benfica in what was very much revenge for the previous year. He terrorized Roma in a game where he opened his UCL account, and even got on the score sheet against Milan in the semis. And we were just getting started. Point, Ronaldo. Number 4, 2007-2008. Now this is actually a pretty underrated UCL campaign for Messi, because you see, before what seemed at the time like endless muscle problems returned around January-February time, the man was cooking in this competition. But even then, there still is no real competition here. Because yes, no matter how young you may be, you at least know of the CR7 season, don't you? The first of his 5 UCL wins, and best believe, at no point was he a fucking passenger. Starting by snatching a win away at Sporting, going on to do the same to Sporting at home as well as Roma away, and in the later stages put up 2 memorable displays against Barca as well as another world-class one against Chelsea in the final. Point, Ronaldo. Number 5, 2008-2009. Basically inverse of 07-08, an underrated UCL campaign for Ronaldo. He knocked out both Porto and Arsenal in the quarters and semis respectively, both with 40-yard strikes. But yes, ultimately there's no competition. Messi began the group stages on fire, got one of his very few good memories against Bayern in the knockouts, and ended it by taking Barcelona to the maiden treble. Point, Messi. Number 6, 2009-2010. In terms of individual performance, this was super close, if not a narrow victory to CR9. He ripped up every team he came up against despite playing through the middle, a position he was never really comfortable in playing, especially back then. But nah, because when all factors are considered, Leo takes this for 2 reasons. Number 1, he slapped Arsenal silly with 4 goals in 1 game. Bro, imagine doing that in a UCL knockout tie. And 2, Barca made it to the semis, while Real bowed out in the second round. And sorry, as much as you may hate to admit it, but that's always gonna matter somewhat. Point, Messi. Number 7, 2010-2011. No such competition here. This was Messi's greatest UCL campaign ever, and despite Barca not having the easiest route to glory, no matter who you put in front of him that season, including the 2 biggest clubs in the world, Leo just went through them like they couldn't even see him. Point, Messi. Number 8, 2011-2012. Christ, this was so much closer than I first anticipated. Because, you know, I was just under the impression that, well, it's Messi 2012, so obviously he wins everything. Not necessarily. Because I'm sorry, but CR7's positive performances meant a lot to his team that season, especially considering that he turned in set performances against teams like Ajax, Lyon, and Bayern. However, 1, Messi's stats are simply too much to ignore this season, even if he was a low-key big game ghoster. But to be fair, he did score 5 in 1 game this time, and that 2 against Leverkusen. They aren't pushovers, bro. And 2, Ronaldo missed a penalty that proved to be very costly in the end. And this is something else the fanboys may hesitate to admit, but that too matters. Point, Messi. Number 9, 2012-2013. And we return to a no competition entry. Because yep, it was just one of those seasons where CR7 was basically a one-man team, standing out easily as the best player in one of the toughest UCL groups ever, coming clutch against United in both legs of the knockouts, and even when Real were knocked out in the semis, he still delivered, as he did in pretty much every competition that season. Super underrated this, I mean by me more than anyone else. I may need to rethink my top 7 versions list. Point, Ronaldo. Number 10, 2013-2014. A season where Messi began the UCL campaign with a hat-trick and then went on to destroy both Man City and AC Milan in 2 games each, is still a distant second here. That should tell you what CR7 was that season, putting up the record for most goals in a single UCL campaign, annihilating any and every team, most of them in style, and finally taking Real to that long elusive La Decima. The floodgates, or rather the catch-up bottle as he likes to say, have now well and truly been opened. Point, Ronaldo. Number 11, 2014-2015. Brilliant campaigns for both here. Ronnie doing his usual stuff by dragging Real through knockout ties against Schalke and Atletico, while Messi began the season by temporarily breaking the goal scoring
shit,
record
mere.
before then going on to destroy Ajax, play with Man
Drikker jo heller ikke
City,
engang kaffe, jo.
embarrass
Eller
Jerome
energidrik.
Boateng, and even put up a pretty underrated performance in the UCL final against Juve. So as you can tell, while they were both great, there's still one clear winner here. Point Messi. Number 12, 2015-2016. One of the more underwhelming UCL campaigns by Messi here. I mean, it's not his fault that he missed part of the group stages due to an injury he picked up in a La Liga game in September. But even when he came back, he didn't really shake up Europe. But you know who did? Yep, starting with breaking the group stage goal-scoring record, going on to dump Roma out with a world-class display away from home and a clutch display at home, before, of course, the iconic night against Wolfsburg, scoring a hat-trick to turn the first leg deficit and now making La Undecima an eventual reality. Point Ronaldo. Number 13, 2016-2017. Right, so I actually feel sorry for Messi here, because I don't know if you remember, but this man was tearing the group stages apart that season. And no lie, he could have plausibly broken the record set by Ronaldo the previous season if he didn't miss one of the games through injury. Eventually, though, he couldn't continue his rich vein of form because, as MSN had a low-key habit of doing, they were demolished in Europe, this time by PSG and Juventus. As for Ronaldo, well, not much to say. This was his greatest UCL campaign ever. This was his greatest string of big game performances ever. This was the season where he cemented his place as the face of the European game. This was the season he became Mr. Champions League. Point Ronaldo. Number 14, 2017-2018. Another case of Messi's brilliant balling being broken early by Barca basically being a bit basic when battling the big boys around this time, suffering a humiliation loss this time at the hands of Roma. Though big up to Leo for slapping a brace against Juve and getting his revenge for the previous year though. But yeah, obviously, because speaking of slapping a brace against Juve that campaign, this was again Ronnie's year, scoring in every single group stage game, taking out PSG mainly on his own, as well as those iconic displays against his future home. How he didn't win the Ballon d'Or that year is still genuinely a f***ing mystery. Point Ronaldo. Number 15, 2018-2019. An overrated but fantastic Messi season and an underrated but fantastic Ronaldo season realistically meet somewhere in the middle. Messi ran riot in the group stages, slapped United around and put up a really good display against Liverpool in the home game of the semis. But also, he missed a crucial double tie against Inter in the group stages through injury. Not his fault, but facts are he didn't play in Barca's two toughest games in Europe up until the semis. Not to mention he was distinctly average in the second leg of the semis as Barca suffered yet another humiliation in Europe. On the other hand, Ronaldo began the year by basically humiliating himself after bursting into tears following a red card against Valencia. I mean, yeah, it was the wrong decision, but man up, mate, you got like 43 kids. But he then slowly grew into his role at Juve, put up very good showings against Valencia, United again, as well as in both legs against Ajax in the quarters, as well as a stellar wingers display in the first leg against Atletico, which gets overlooked due to the result, which itself ultimately didn't matter due to his actions in the second leg against Atletico, which itself has now become one of Mr. Champions League's iconic performances in the competition. Point tie. Number 16, 2019-2020. If we take an average of both their performances, this season was the worst in quite a while. Barca were in a pretty dark phase around this time, and as I've said before, there was little Messi did that made more than little difference. Before being part of yet another and probably the biggest humiliation of his career, he did manage to score one of the goals of his career against Napoli, so fair enough. And as far as Ronaldo, well, he could have scored one of the goals of his career against Atletico. Well, Christ, if this went in, it would have still been talked about today, I guarantee that. What he did manage to do, though, is continue to turn up, continue to grind it out, as Juve turned in quite a below par showing in Europe that year. Point tie. Number 17, 2020-2021. And after quite a while, 10 years if I'm not wrong, we had a Messi-Ronaldo head-to-head clash in the competition. And well, the performances in that game was pretty reflective of their overall performances in Europe that campaign. Messi trying his utmost best to make anything happen with the largely underperforming supporting cast he had with him around this time, and Ronaldo finding a way to leave his mark on the game with the largely aging supporting cast he had with him around this time, with CR7 eventually winning out. Point Ronaldo. Number 18, 2021-2022. The second season in a row where both GOATs made last 16 exits. Though this time for a change, it wasn't even remotely close as far as who was better. Like, don't get me wrong, while Messi's goal as well as his performance in the home game against City was sweet, he simply paled in comparison to a returning CR7 who scored in every single group stage game he played, dragging United through multiple ties, including 2 in injury time, taking them to their first place finish in the UCL groups for the first time in half a decade. Point Ronaldo. Bonus round, Messi 2022-2023 versus Ronaldo 2003-2004. They were the leftover campaigns, so why not pit them against each other? So, Messi in 22-23 actually slapped in 8 goal contributions in the group stages. I'm granted 6 of them were against Maccabi Haifa, but still, I mean, it was still more than what Ronaldo did in 03-04, which is not much. Mostly warming the bench, get some minutes here and there, and end it by walking off hurt. And look, before you tell me, I realize it's a tad unfair pitting an 18-year-old against a seasoned veteran. And yes, believe you me, I realize the reaction I'd have gotten from Messi fanboys if I pitted an 18-year-old version of him against an older Ronaldo. But again, they were the leftovers, and I just found it wrong to simply have them left over. Point, Messi. Final score, Messi 9, Ronaldo 12. And that is that. Agree or disagree, beats indifference. Once again, don't forget to like, comment, and share. And of course, subscribe. Till next time, you keep rolling.
Nå, stress dig, Mia. Prøv nok. Eller så sov, hvis det er. Så sov. Hvis du har brug for det. Bare en halvanden time. Bare 20 minutter.
At his peak, Messi was unplayable. He wasn't just breaking records, he was breaking logic. But what if I told you he didn't peak once, not even twice? Lionel Messi reached 4 completely different levels, each time evolving into something football had never seen before. This is not a story of one prime. It's the story of a man who ruled 4 different ages of football. At the start of the 2008 season, Barcelona was in transition. Pep Guardiola was appointed as the new head coach of Barcelona, and straight away he got to work. He got rid of superstars like Ronaldinho and Deco, and rather than get big-name transfers to replace them, his idea was to use the talent at La Masia and build a team around Messi. Despite a shaky start with a 1-0 defeat to Numancia in the league, Messi and Barca had picked up some serious form. They bounced back to a 9-game winning streak, a 21-game unbeaten run in La Liga, and on his part, Messi was having a demon season. In that unbeaten run, Messi had 27 goal contributions and was doing the same in Europe too. 5 goals and 2 assists in the opening 5 games of the Champions League, all from the right wing. Messi was already cooking up a storm that season, and then Pep Guardiola changed everything. Ahead of the match versus Real Madrid at the Bernabeu, Pep decided to test a theory that would go on to revolutionise football. The birth of Lionel Messi in the false 9 position.
El falso 9 nace contra el Madrid. ¿No lo habían practicado antes?
No lo habíamos hablado, sí que creo que él antes en la semana o antes de un par de días de entrenamiento no lo llegó a probar, pero algo mencionaba de que capaz hacemos algo diferente, estoy viendo.
Messi was the main attacking force as Barcelona won the treble in 2008-09, with 23 goals in the league, second behind Diego Forlan. He was also the top scorer in the Champions League that season, despite it being the first with Pep in Barcelona's senior team. And the crazy part is, his game wasn't just about the goals. See, playing in that false 9 position, the idea was simple. Guardiola wanted to monopolise possession and create as many chances with movements off the ball, and Messi was the key. There was no doubt he could dribble, but moving him centrally, he created the stuff of nightmares for opposing defenders because they couldn't get close to him. 38 goals and 19 assists in 51 games in the 2008-09 season, the first time he was hitting the 30-plus mark for goals. While the 2009-10 season didn't go as planned from a collective standpoint, Messi in that role again was a revelation. There was talk about him underperforming in the Champions League, so he smashed 4 past Arsenal as a reminder of just how dangerous he could be. Goals in the semi-final and final of the Club World Cup, and 34 goals in La Liga, including 3 hat-tricks. Messi, centrally, was unplayable. 47 goals and 12 assists in 53 games in 2009-10.
Spiser du is, Mia? Hvilken is?
But with Barca missing out on the Champions League and La Liga, Messi, just like the rest of the team, knew they needed more. But even this couldn't prepare the world for what followed next. 2010-11. Barcelona, a team so good it's often referred to as the most complete team football has ever seen. Opposition managers left in awe about how they dominated games, and the key to that was once again Messi. The central theme was always Messi. The 2010-11 Barcelona team was the ideal model of how Pep wanted a Barca team under him to play. Regarding Messi, playing in that false nine position meant he constantly dropped deep to connect with the midfield. He could move wherever he wanted to, and that made him just as dangerous even without the goal contributions. The 5-0 thumping of Jose Mourinho's Real Madrid is the perfect example. Messi didn't get on the score sheet himself, but set up 2 goals on the night and ran that Real Madrid team so hard it ended up like this. Goals from Messi followed a steady progression that continued that season. He hit the 50-plus goal mark for the first time in his career. 53 goals in all competitions that season, 12 in the Champions League, 31 in La Liga, and that was off the back of goals like this.
Here's Messi, away from 2, 3, 4, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
But it would be impossible to talk about Messi that season without perhaps the most dominant Champions League final of all time. Barcelona didn't just beat Manchester United at Wembley, it was a match that arguably one of United's greatest centre-backs still remembers to this day.
It takes the sting out of it a little bit that they were actually that good. We went to a fight, a war with no guns, no knives. It's the only time in my career I've been in a game and thought, we can't do anything.
Barcelona's 68.4% possession and 89.6% pass success rate made Manchester United look like amateurs. It was like every single game that season, Messi found ways to embarrass the opposition. It didn't make any difference if he was man-marked, triple-team marked, or even unmarked. The same outcome. Messi broke Barcelona's single-season goal-scoring record in all competitions and tied the all-time Champions League goal-scoring mark at the time. He was fouled 107 times that season because he was simply unplayable. And then came 2011-12 season, one where he took goal scoring to an entirely different level. 91 goals in 69 official matches, 13 goals in the Champions League, 5 in the Copa del Rey, 2 goals in the Supercopa, 59 La Liga goals in 38 matches, 12 goals for Argentina, performances like the 5-goal haul against Leverkusen in the Champions League, 9 hat-tricks that season, and had 22 multi-goal games. I could drop more numbers and more stats, but the picture is clear. Messi was playing career mode in real life, and at the end of the season was undoubtedly the best player in the world. 4 Ballon d'Ors in a row, 91 goals in the calendar year of 2012, Messi was the perfect piece in Guardiola's system. But one question around Messi was gaining heavy traction because some believe Messi was Guardiola's pet, a system player. Pep left Barca in 2012, and in the 2 seasons that followed, the team struggled. It'll be tempting to use the word struggled with Messi because on one hand, more than 100 goals in 2 seasons. They were still very elite numbers, but the fact that the team failed to replicate the same heights they had in previous years brought questions about certain players being system players, and Messi's name was in that conversation. Some believed it was only a matter of time before Messi would get finished, particularly after that 2013-14 season. His response? He became 1/3 of arguably the greatest trio the game has ever seen. The MSN. Neymar joined in 2013, Suarez in 2014. Right from the start, the South American trio hit it running. Neymar on the left, Suarez through the middle, and Messi down the right. They didn't just beat teams. This front three, they destroyed the opposition. It was hard enough getting past just one of these 3. Neymar, the Brazilian wonder kid from Santos, was finally living up to his reputation in Barcelona, silky smooth and skillful with the ball. In one-on-ones, he was deadly. Then Luis Suarez, the European Golden Boot holder at the time, off the back of setting the record for the then joint most goals in a single English Premier League with 31 for Liverpool. And once he got into the team in October, Suarez was a lethal combination of goals and assists, clever movements, excellent finishes. Then Messi, simply unstoppable. That goal against Bayern Munich in the Champions League highlights Messi during this period. He had the skill to take on opponents, completely humiliate them, and still find the finish on his own. Jerome Boateng was one of the best defenders in the world at the time, and in that moment Messi had slashed his price tag in half. That season was just something else for Barca and Messi. They won the treble again. The MSN combined for 122 goals and 64 assists in all competitions that year. Neymar hit a career high of 39 goals and 10 assists. Suarez with 25 goals and 23 assists. Messi, 58 goals and 28 assists in 57 matches. Messi's numbers told a story. That goal against Athletic Bilbao is right up there with the greats. Scoring 58 goals is one thing, but in the same season, Messi created 143 chances as well. He'd become the main part of a collective that didn't fear any team. En route to winning the Champions League, Barca beat the champions of England Manchester City in the round of 16, the champions of France PSG in the quarter-finals, the champions of Germany Bayern Munich in the semi-finals, and the champions of Italy Juventus in the final. The champions from 4 of the top 5 leagues in Europe all went down to that Barcelona team. This was Messi as the controller of chaos. Tactically, under Luis Enrique, he was brilliant. Emotionally, he was playing to prove the disappointment of losing the 2014 World Cup, and that only made him stronger. But there was one drawback. For the 3 years the MSN lasted, from 2014 to 2017, they were incredible. 364 goals and 171 assists together as a trio, but Messi, he became known as one part of the trio, and that was the problem. Many believed he couldn't do it on his own, and they had reason to. In 2009, that Barcelona team had players like Henry in attack. In 2011, Xavi and Iniesta controlling the tempo behind him. And in 2015, it was Suarez and Neymar. The drawback with Messi now was that every time, he always had a system, partners, a part of something, until it changed. Messi was about to face the greatest challenge of his career at Barcelona, becoming club captain.
The Lone Wolf Warrior.
2018-19. Messi is against the odds now. He has to become a version of himself he hasn't been at Barcelona yet. A leader, with Xavi, Iniesta and Neymar leaving the club. Luis Suarez was declining. The midfield options looked slow and lacked the rhythm Barca had for years, and defensively it looked a mess at times. This was where it was at for Messi. This was a real test. It's also here that he delivers his most complete season ever. 50 games, 51 goals, 19 assists, 70 goal contributions, 8 free kicks, 4 hat-tricks, and a promise.
Pero también es verdad que todos nos quedamos con la espinita de la Champions. Así que hoy nosotros prometemos que vamos a hacer todo lo posible para que esa copa tan linda y tan deseada por todos vuelva a atacar otra vez en el Camp Nou.
On his part, Messi became everything for Barcelona. They won La Liga thanks to his brilliance in the league. 36 goals and 14 assists, 50 goal contributions in 34 games, and won the Spanish Super Cup too. In the Champions League, Messi was in a league of his own. He single-handedly dragged his team to the semi-final. Also, he was not only the top scorer, he was voted as the best forward, won the goal of the tournament, and in La Liga, he was the best player, the best forward, the player with the most assists. In Europe, he won the European Golden Shoe, the FIFA The Best Award, and at the end of the year, another Ballon d'Or. Messi was the captain of this Barcelona ship, and his performances did the talking. The ball was glued to his feet. Messi played the game like a man on a mission, determined to fulfill that promise as a leader to the Barcelona fans. But then the walls came crumbling. Anfield, the scene of Messi's European collapse with Barcelona. They let a 3-goal lead slip, got knocked out of the Champions League in the semi-finals. It got worse as well. They also lost the Copa del Rey final against Valencia. Barcelona had gone from a potential treble to winning just the league title that season. Messi was devastated. Still, it took nothing away from the fact that Messi had proved a point. He could do it on his own with little or no support. Messi didn't need magic around him now because he was the magic, and eventually the magician shone his wand on world football's biggest stage. But time was passing, and with every game from that point on physically, Messi lost something. Some thought he was playing on borrowed time and would soon retire, but Messi had one more trick up his sleeve, the greatest act of his magical career yet. At this point, Messi looked to be nearing the end. He'd left Barcelona in 2021 to join PSG, but this was he'd somehow broken the jinx with Argentina. See, for years Messi had tried. The 2014 World Cup final, back-to-back finals in 2015 and 2016. Messi had done everything he could to win a trophy with the national team, but it didn't work, at least until 2021. Under Lionel Scaloni, the national team had rebuilt. Messi was still the central figure, but with the addition of players like goalkeeper Emi Martinez, Rodrigo de Paul, alongside experienced pros such as Di Maria, Argentina had stability, and that was the key to finally breaking the 28-year jinx. Messi and Argentina conquered South America. Overcome with emotion, he'd finally done it. Finally won a trophy with the national team, but this was still only the beginning. The best would come a year later. He was 35, coming into the 2022 World Cup. There were doubts over his physical condition. How long would Messi be able to run for? Would his presence in the team cost Argentina in the long run? But yet again, Messi evolved into something different. The wizard. He didn't need to run to make the difference. He wasn't the fastest or the strongest, but in moments like this, he could explode. Every touch had a meaning. Every pass was to break the opposition. The team was built to understand him, and in turn, he made each action count. The World Cup final. 8 years ago at 27, Messi had been at that stage. In his physical prime, he failed to win the big one with Argentina, and now standing in his way was a French team led by Mbappe looking to deny him again. The only difference was that this time, Messi wasn't the same man. A brace in the final. The game went to penalties after Mbappe's hat-trick, and the team did it for him. Gonzalo Montiel scored the goal to win it. At 35, Messi had conquered the world. He'd won the World Cup with Argentina as captain, as the learning figure, the main force, not the fastest or the strongest, but he was the best. Another Ballon d'Or followed, proof that at that moment, as he had been for almost his entire career, Messi evolved into the final act. 1,095 appearances, 858 goals and 381 assists as of recording this. Lionel Messi changed football in 4 different eras. He was a goal scorer, creator, a leader and a winner. He's completed the game, nothing left. There's a lot of young talent in world football right now, but one thing is clear. There will never be another Lionel Messi.
Hvad så er det sammen med til den video? Den video er sponsoreret. Jeg kan ikke mega stor. Det kan jeg TikTok, deres TikTok er nede i beskrivelsen. Det er noget. Så i dag skal vi teste den her rice fuel med lemon zero sugar. Jeg har fået det der gratis. Så der kommer også nogle videoer på Robes kanal. Så jeg smager. Der er meget koffein i det her. Det smager meget godt. Den er egentlig ret god. Ikke dårlig. Der er meget koffein i. Jeg synes, du skal give et stjerne fra 1 til 6. En god 4. Den er god nok. Den er faktisk ikke dårlig. Rigtig god leverpostej.
Ja. Nice. I wouldn't know.
There were no computers when I started making music.
Oh yeah.
There were no computers.
Yeah.
Like this is a whole different era. Like I graduated high school, there were no cell phones.
So I remember, it's hard to remember what life was like without computers.
Right, yeah.
But like when phones started to come about, I remember, so like I used to have the brick phone Nokia.
Yeah.
The Motorola, the
Motorola, yep, absolutely.
And then the BlackBerry as well.
I'm looking at this.
Now everything's just
Yeah.
I saw you did stuff with XQC.
Yeah. He's fine.
Yeah. The amount of people are gonna watch it like, what? I'm doing a trial off.
my days.
Well, it's just because it came from the video. So
Yeah.
So a lot of people were like, oh my god, these were in there as well. That's so funny. So they gave me a surprise birthday party. So my birthday is June 19th, but they did it like ahead of time.
I think the
No,
video
it was good.
Happy be early birthday.
Thank you, man.
How old are you? 32.
Yeah.
Damn.
Damn, what did you
No,
tell
it's
him?
like, I'm like,
What did
it's
you
like,
tell him?
you know, because I'm like old enough to be your father. I'm
Oh,
like,
what?
He's saying you're young.
I'm saying you're young,
Oh, okay.
32.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Normally, I'm used to young guys being like, damn,
no.
you old as hell.
My son is a year older than you. My
Oh,
oldest
snap.
son
Yeah.
33.
Oh, my God.
Crazy. Damn. That was a damn for me.
Oh,
That was a damn for me.
Yo, what's up? It's your boy KSI, and we're doing the Try Not to Laugh. Look who's stiff. Yeah.
That's a scary cat. That shit. They said they were letting the cat out. Like, that's not a cat. That's why he put the cats away. You just feel like your soul is in jeopardy. Whoa. I wouldn't know. Them things look like they are like here to like purge energies from the other side. Like,
See, that licked my cup. I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna turn into.
Alright, so in the Baller League, it's a six-a-side football.
Ja.
There's a player called PK Humble. He has a dance every time he scores.
Men jeg slutter snart mere. Jeg slutter snart.
How to do it. PK Humble. Okay, how's your dance moves? Okay, so...
Need to relax. I really need to relax. Nu har jeg også arbejdet hele vejen igennem. Hvad? Jeg mener det mere. Jeg mener det. I need to relax. Jeg er nødt til lige... Ja. Jeg kommer stadigvæk til at streame senere mere. Bare roligt. Men om 10 minutter. Det er ikke for sjov mere. I need that break mere. I need that break. Det er også morgen, forstår mig også ret. Jeg er en aftenstreamer. Jo. Ja. Lev med det mere. Lev med det. Det er fordi du laver ballade mere. Mia, din ballade med jer.
Så kan I godt sætte jer til rette, for nu er Danmark klar til at sparke sommerfesten i gang.
Du forlader mig. Og sådan. Nu får jeg dårlig samvittighed mere. Nu får jeg dårlig samvittighed. Men Mia, helt seriøst ikke, min telefon er også meget varm. Det er også mere det. Der er tid til en pause. Altså. Jeg er udenfor, jeg streamer på mit data, min telefon er rigtig varm. Det kommer til at lagge alligevel, ikke? Så det er bedre. Men ja.
Sådan der smag.
Er godt? Er godt? Er godt? Jeg troede lige, den var på dig, mand, der.
Det her.
Det er lækkert. Det er lækkert.
Hvad siger vi? 8 ud af 10. Nej, ved du hvad?
9 ud af 10. 9, abstinenser.
Okay, vi er klar.
Jeg er nok gang, vi skal høre se reaktion.
Hvad så altså? Hvem til den video?
Sponsoreret kendt i mindste år, og bragt til jer af Rumvæsen, Ultra Blue, Hawaii.
Smager
Jeg har lige fået til støvsat. Varmt.
Jeg smager først.
Den er god.
Jeg håber, at rumvæsen ellers vil have min børn bruge det tilbage.
Det er for sent.
Ja, Mia.
Der er en vits omkring dig. Der er en vits omkring dig. Der er en vits omkring dig.
Ja, okay. Stå og søg, Patrick. Så gør det så.
Den er god. Woo!
Den er bedre end den hvide. Det er faktisk en meget bedre version af hvide. Jeg giver den 8 ud af 10.
Den er god 10.
Ja, ikke noget til sækken, kører.
Nej, 7 ud af 10. Vi laver 10. Like, subscribe. Kom færdig. Næste. Hey, what up?
Hvad så?
Sodavandstest.
Yeah.
Taste-test. Taste-test rumvæsen.
Ja. Hey Mia, vi har noget, du ikke har.
Ja. Vi slutter, fam. Vi slutter. Den er